Live.
Oh, we're live. Okay. That's why I was laughing. I was smiling, laughing. I didn't see it. Hello, everyone. This is Chavez and Valko's end of the week wrap up. It's Friday. Yay, yay, yay. Friday. Friday. My name is Martin Valko. I'm coming to you from our Dallas office, and with me is my esteemed colleague, my partner, my law partner and partner in crime, Nicolas Chavez, out of our Fort Worth office. Nicolas,
Hello,
¿qué
everyone.
tal?
¿Qué tal? How's everyone? Hope y'all enjoyed your week and get ready for the weekend, right?
Weekend's here. Yeah. Make sure you like us on Facebook. You follow us. You also like us on. You follow us on YouTube. Is it following on YouTube? We're. I think we're at 919 followers on YouTube, Nick, and we're
Yeah,
getting close to
right.
1,000. So we gotta celebrate. It's gonna be a big celebration. So make sure you follow us if you are in search of good information and good shows and um, we just have I think pretty good information on in both in English and Spanish on family based content, removal based content and appeals, and also
Yeah,
business based immigration investors. Please stay through the end of the show, which is not going to be a long show, but we are going to announce a raffle. We like to give things away, give some goodies away. So please stay until the end. We're just going to do a quick rundown of what happened in the world of immigration law. I'm just going to start up with a very, very, very important and exciting news, and that is the suspension of the COVID testing for travelers that are coming to the U.S. They're flying inbound. So starting this Sunday at 12:01 a.m. Eastern time, the administration will suspend this rule of having a negative COVID test in the last or the 24 hours prior to departing for the U.S. So, just really good news because I mean, I travel internationally, and I'm sure lots of our viewers and followers are traveling, and so that's always this last thing on your mind is like, oh man, hold on, where should I get the test, and why are they still giving it? Because not everybody's doing the same thing as they used to, like these
hmm
providers. So you always have to locate someone or one of these things so you can get tested and there's no word on the vaccination requirement, so I would presume that it's going to stay in place. You're going to have to show that you have been vaccinated previously. Um, so yeah, this is really really good development.
yeah. And it's for those who are traveling
Inbound,
the airport, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
not the
not the port of entry. There was always an exception for
right.
those. But this is really, I mean, as I said, you're getting up at 5 or 4 in the morning, and so that you're always kind of planning and last minute, and then you have to like, okay, have I made plans to be tested? Because your typical homemade test will not work. It has to be something that is issued by a doctor or one of these authorities, and so. At least for us, and when you're traveling with a family, 4 or 6 people, right? It's always a hassle. So that's a great development. Moving on to, there was a new development and new asylum rules that went into effect at the end of last month. Can you tell us something about it, Nick?
Yeah. And I think this news kind of snuck up on us. It seemed like it's a dramatic shift in um, how the government processes applications for asylum at the border. And we know, and we've discussed this many times on the show today, or before that there's this huge backlog of individuals in court who are applying for asylum. They're coming in and they're requesting asylum. And the normal process is they are detained and then they are processed for asylum. They get their case heard first with an immigration officer who screens their asylum for credible fear. And then if there is credible fear, then it's passed on to immigration court. And that's where we see the backlog. Now, during this time, they could bond out, or they can release them under what's called parole. But in order to reduce this backlog, last year there was discussion, and they passed this rule that went into effect on the 31st, that when a person crosses and is detained, rather than passing that asylum case over to immigration court, where years of delay, they'll have an asylum officer who could look at it and even approve it if there's enough evidence to show asylum, which in theory sounds great, right? We want them to approve it. But in practice, there's some concern, because if the goal is to make things quicker for asylum seekers, that might be tough, because some of these asylum cases, as you know, Martin, they're complicated. I mean, it's not going to, they want to dispose of a case in 90 days, and the case requires that we present evidence from an expert or something. That's going to be kind of tough. So we'll see what happens.
Especially if you're trying to get the evidence from your country, from your home country, where whether it's newspaper clippings or whatever evidence it may be, it may not be accessible within that time period. And it's certainly gonna complicate things. And sometimes, it's like you're trying to weigh it, like, if it's going for way too long versus 90 days, maybe they'll make some adjustments, depending on how things will develop and how much, probably backlash they'll get from advocates like ourselves and others.
Right.
But we'll have to see,
right.
Just like with anything else.
Well, it's also this big whole effort of the government to address how they describe it, the root causes of immigration. They want it where individuals they come in, they're streamlined, and they're processed. They make a decision quickly, or if not, there's a quick appellate or review process. And it is that part of that effort to make things quicker, but at the expense of you might not have enough time to present a good case. But is it a good development? In general, I think it is, because it might reduce the number of people who are sent away on MPP, and that's something that's currently under review at the Supreme Court level with this case, Biden versus Texas. But I think that if you have the system, it might be better than having to wait in Mexico, where you're exposed to other dangers and risks. So again, we'll see what happens.
I think it also might prompt the asylum applicants reach out to representation, to attorneys, to nonprofits, and they may just get the case ready earlier than as if they were to come in and then seek representation and then see what you can get. So again, we'll have to see. All right, moving on. So last time we met, we were talking about the Title 42, and again, this is administration's a rule that when it's put in place, it basically keeps people like asylum applicants out of the U.S. So they can't enter, they can't be processed. They basically just keep them out, and that was instituted by the previous president. And that's been extended, and it was supposed to be lifted according to or by the order of CDC, Center for Disease Control, on May 23rd. And that was Monday. We met on May 20th, on Friday, and we're discussing it. There's nothing out there. And literally after we ended the show, the federal district court judge in Louisiana had entered I believe that was a temporary injunction, so enjoined the suspension, the lifting of the TPS, and so TPS, the Title 42, and that stayed in place. And so administration, I think, they were hoping it would be kept in place, because I don't think they were ready. But at the same time, they said they appealed it. They appealed the injunction, and so. That was an interesting development, but it was a couple of weeks ago when we were, discussing it and talking about it. Now, you probably heard, there's about 5,000 people caravan that is moving towards the southern border, and I think it was all planned that they would come, and I guess majority of the people would be seeking asylum from the triangle countries that were coming up. But now with the Title 42 in place, I wonder, that's going to be interesting to see what will happen, what will develop on the southern border, and once I think they're already in Mexico. I'm not sure, but like once if they're not stopped or delayed somehow, that they're going to make it to the southern border, and they're going to have to wait until there's resolution on this. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that's going to be interesting because you see, the new asylum rules, right? That were just laid out, and then we have the caravan you mentioned that's coming up, and then we have Title 42. Are they going to be expelled? It seems like a big, telenovela. It's just like you're the suspense. But what's going to happen here? Are they going to lock here? So where if a person appears at the border, at a port of entry, and asks for asylum, those new asylum rules say, hey, they're going to process this request. They might be detained. It's going to be quick. But how does that play out? And I think that's where the pieces that they're moving right now. I think that's where they want them to fit. So again, it's going to be interesting what happens. But nothing ever works out perfectly. There's going to be people who unfortunately are going to be set aside because of all this, and people with really genuine asylum claims. And this month we're waiting on that the MPP, the migrant remain in Mexico policy, the migrant protections protocol. Nothing protective about MPP, right? Because it's gonna. What it does, it sends individuals back to Mexico. Not all, but certain nationals from Central South America. It sends them to Mexico while they wait for their court hearing. And we've heard some horrible stories of people there in the camps who were being recruited and targeted by these traffickers, drug traffickers, and it's just not a good thing. And you how difficult I would imagine is to represent somebody in a camp. And so we'll see if this plan of expediting the asylum will reduce that, and how will that address the caravan and all that. And they also have a huge PR problem in their hands, right? Because when we hear caravan, that's usually broadcasted on Fox News and other outlets in a very negative way. And since we're nearing the midterm elections, the political season, that's why they're really walking on thin ice here.
Yeah. Do you think there's going to be any difference if because under the injunction of the Title 42, anybody trying to come through other places than port of entries will be expelled, right? Do you think that new rule will be applicable at the port of entries?
With respect to the asylum rules?
Asylum applicants.
Yeah. So and it would grab on to those individuals who are trying to reach out, whether or not they're detained at a port of entry or in between, or they're caught in. The laws allow for them to be apprehended, even though they don't show up in person or surrender themselves to authority. If they're caught coming in, and if it's within 100 miles, they could be treated as what's called an arriving alien or non-citizen, and they have lesser rights than somebody who's already in the United States, who's already made their way here to Dallas, right? And they get placed in removal proceedings. Well, that person will have the eligibility to apply for a bond, whereas a person who's caught outside, the rights are far, far less. And you're talking about, instead of a bond, we're hoping that they give the person what's called parole, which is a release while their cases is pending.
When you say outside, within the 100 miles, right, of the rolling border, is that what when you said when they're caught outside?
Well, that's a good question, because what is outside? And and I don't think even the officials know. There's so many, we hear about so many stories where a person is treated as an arriving alien, somebody who's arriving, but they're already here miles in the United States. And so that border, what is it? And last year, in fact, one of the courts, we call it the BIA, right? It's one of those courts that reviews the decisions from the lower courts, immigration judges I'm talking about here. They went ahead and said, look, we're going to look at this issue. What does outside mean? Does outside mean inside? Does arriving mean you're here within 100 miles, 500 miles? And if so, if you're caught, do you get less rights? And do you get sent back? Are you treated? Are you subject under Title 42 or MPP? There's a lot of issues that are at play right now. And boy, man, that immigration advisor right now for the Biden administration must be going crazy.
These are technical terms, and you got to be speaking at the AILA, American Immigration Law Association National Conference, which is the biggest event of the organization in New York City next week, right? And I think you got to be on a similar topic about arriving aliens, renounced citizens, and parole, and all these different things. So,
yeah, we're going to be talking about that. In case you're wondering why I'm dressed like some grunge punk rock star from the 90s, it's because usually, and Martin knows this, probably within a week prior to doing a speaking engagement, you have to prepare. You have to, and so there's a lot of research to be done. And so this is the time where I do a lot of the research. I almost feel like a college student sometimes, coming in the office and reading books to be prepared.
You did that in college? You meant a law school student?
Well, yeah, law school, yeah.
All right. Well, we'll be ready and eager to hear from your experiences in New York City. I
heard grunge when I mentioned grunge, right? That's like the early 90s. So instantaneously, I went to the early 90s, where the Pearl Jam. I don't know if you heard of Pearl Jam.
Nirvana. Yes. Are you asking me or are you asking the viewers?
Well, you see, I asked you because since you came from Slovakia, and there's been some things where I took it for granted. Maybe you knew, but because it was after you came, I'm not too sure if you were familiar with the group.
Of course.
So maybe Joe will play us some Pearl Jam at the end.
Yeah, I'm. Although I came from former Eastern Europe, I was an exchange student to Dripping Springs High School near Austin, and first thing I did was to learn how to two-step. And people would not believe me that I'm from Europe once they saw me dancing. So, I came with, I grew up on Depeche Mode and all kinds of music, and boom, then I started going to honky tonk, and it was a lot of fun. So, well, cool. Well, good luck in New York next week.
Thank you.
Another development this week, which is a positive development, and was a registration announcement for the TPS, which is a temporary protected status for Cameroon. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, Nick?
Yeah. So TPS, and we mentioned this many times on our program, is the it stands for temporary protected status, which gives a foreign national legal status to remain in the United States and work and travel freely. Don't have to worry about being deported, but they have to meet certain requirements. And TPS, the status is designated when something really awful is happening in a person's home country. We saw it with Ukraine, and we saw it with Afghanistan. Well, Cameroon, based on the political turmoil there and them having to deal with violence, they went ahead and designated back in April. So we announced this back in April, but what happens when there's an announcement, that's one thing. But the actual implementation of the rule and the forms and the process, that takes a while. So usually we see these TPS announcements. We'll see an announcement, and then maybe a couple of weeks, and in this case months, later we'll see them roll it out for individuals who qualify, and they have to show they've been here in the United States on a certain day here for people from Cameroon, and they're physically present. That's what they need to show, that they were physically present in the United States since April 14th of this year. And then there's some other requirements as well.
Yeah, I think it was the continuous residence from April 14th, and then continued physical presence on June 7th. So, if you arrived on April 15th or 16th, you just wouldn't qualify for that. So, TPS is a very interesting topic, and it's just provided some protection blanket for nationals of so many countries. Joe's going to post a link for the USCIS website where you can learn more about it, especially the registration periods. But just to kind of give you an idea, how many countries are currently still under the designation. So you have Afghanistan that you mentioned, then you have Myanmar, which is Burma, Cameroon, Salvador, Haiti, Honduras, Nepal, Nicaragua, Syria, Somalia, Sudan, South Sudan, Ukraine, Venezuela, and Yemen. And so, that's quite a bit of countries, quite a bit of turmoil around the world. But the beauty of this country is that whenever it sees that people are struggling, that there is some type of unrest, whether military or natural disaster, it steps in, it protects the people. I believe there's supposed to be about under 12,000 people from Cameroon in the U.S. who could take advantage of this. So that's, again, this is welcome news. All right, moving on to DACA, deferred action for childhood arrivals. What is today? The 10th. So we have the 15th. So we will be celebrating 10th anniversary or 10th birthday of DACA on June 15th, which was announced by President Obama with Biden as vice president, who announced this a great program for kids who were kids when they were brought into the U.S. To benefit from this protection. Now, it's unlike TPS, where TPS is status, which you could actually change from that status to a different status. DACA is a lawful stay, so it's authorized stay, but we've had it, close to in a week or so. It's going to be 10 years since we've had it. It has been a great program that allowed people to breathe easily and freely, and to come out and be integrated into society and become teachers and just any professions you can think of. People benefited from DACA, and so it's just a great thing, and hopefully that's going to move forward. And there's been some calls to legalize DACA grantees and to expand the group, and there's just been several efforts over the years, and in fact, you have employers, tech companies, everybody's calling for legalization, so people don't have to be renewing every 2 years, but they get to basically breathe outside of relief. The program has been suspended under President Trump, and so there's no processing of new DACA applicants, but those that have had it before are able to extend it. So what do you have to say, Nick, about DACA?
Well, when I think about DACA turning 10 years old now, I think about certain advantages now that certain DACA enrollees who want to apply for adjustment of status can have now. And what I mean specifically is for those who are applying for adjustment of status, one of the requirements is to show that the person is not a public charge, and they have to file what's called an affidavit of support. And with the affidavit of support, you you have to submit this this form with tax returns from the petitioner. It's just a bunch of things, right? But you don't have to submit that if the applicant, the beneficiary, has been working for 40 quarters, and that equals to 10 years. So I'm thinking about those DACA enrollees, those people who in the in the near future they're applying for adjustment of status, and if they've been working for 10 years,
it's a great point. Yeah,
they might not even have to file this affidavit of support and submit their tax returns. So I'm thinking of that as we progress, there might be some advantages, and of course we're waiting for the new DACA rules to drop any day. It's since spring we've been waiting anxiously. Would it allow new DACA applicants to submit their applications? It's one of those things that we're just waiting. I'm surprised actually that we haven't heard anything yet.
Right. Well, we'll see what will happen. But yeah, I think there was an article this morning that a group of bipartisan senators that meet regularly, said that not to expect any kind of legislation to be even introduced until they come back from the August recess. So it's a seesaw, right? Like when we discuss it here, we see something and it just kind of flies up and flies down. So we're hopeful. We're hopeful, but when you talk about 10 years of DACA, I mean, it just kind of, you're so excited that, okay, it's been protecting people, and also tells you how much you've aged. So,
oh yeah,
we were both speaking at the AILA National Conference in Nashville, I believe, in 2012.
Exactly.
And I think I just got off the panel. You were on the panel, and just news just broke, and so it was just incredible excitement.
Yeah.
This is back in Nashville in June of 10 years ago. So it was great.
It seems like big immigration news always follows the AILA annual conference, and this year it's going to be next week. And so hopefully, fingers crossed, there might drop some good news. Maybe
DACA rules, right?
DACA rules will be dropped.
Right. We also wanted to point out the new visa bulletin is out, and that's something that we always indicate and put the link on Facebook and during just the regular feed. So just follow that. Anything else you wanted to discuss, Nick?
Well, yeah, just we got a message in Spanish, and it kind of reminded me of something. And this he asked that maybe in the future we should talk about the 3 to 10 year bar. We talked about that, and basically he's referring to this new policy. Now, we're waiting for this new policy to reveal itself. We're waiting for a major announcement from USCIS regarding this. They call it the Unlawful Presence Bar. So if you've been in the United States for a certain period of time, you may be required to file a waiver. And I hate when that happens, but but anyways, you might be required to file a waiver if you've been in the United States for longer than a year, for example, and if you leave and then you re-enter the United States for within a period of 10 years, and that's what. So they were asking people to file a waiver in those cases. Now, the argument is that if a person, if it's a 10-year bar, and I don't want to go into the weeds here, but let's just say that could be a positive development for individuals who normally would be required to file a waiver. Now they'll have the chance to file the adjustment without having to do that. So I don't want to get ahead of myself on this one. I think in the future, when there's an announcement, maybe next week, we'll be able to talk about it in clearer terms.
Yep. That was something new. Again, we don't have the specifics yet, and but people are asking about it. So typically you have to file the waiver. So even if you entered lawfully, but you've had unlawful presence between your lawful entries in the U.S., you have to file a waiver. So you can adjust in the U.S., but you have to file that waiver, and you have to have a qualifying relative. You have to have a family member who you have to demonstrate that that person would suffer extreme hardship. And that person can only be a spouse or a parent who's a resident, lawful permanent resident, or a citizen. And sometimes you have a applicant for adjustment who does not have, who only has, who's being sponsored by a son, by a child. And so in those cases, and we've seen that before, where the cases will get denied, or I don't think it was ever being held in abeyance. It just get denied because you need to file a waiver. And so the government was indicating that it will allow us to file a motion to reopen. Just basically petition or motion the service to reopen those cases so they don't have to go through the entire process and pay all the fees again.
Right.
And so that's what we're waiting for. We're waiting for that policy to be, defined, Victor. But that's a great question. And again, great development for immigrants. So again, short show. We typically don't want to go on and on and on. We just kind of wanted to wrap it up. I wanted to announce, as I mentioned earlier, a raffle. And Nick is a cartoonist. I mean, he's actually he's been in the national jurist, and we have here in the office his cartoons. They're pretty funny. I mean, sometimes I had to work to pick the funny ones that would make sense.
Right.
Of course, all of them make sense to Nick. But you mentioned earlier something about Four Corners. What happened there?
Oh no, we were talking earlier. No, well, let's talk about why we were really talking about Four Corners, because we love the beer, don't we? And it's a brewery here in Fort Worth. So when we talked about that, I mentioned that. Well, Four Corners. Do you remember in law school we learned the Four Corners doctrine? So everything in that document and nothing outside of it should control. So everything you need is within those four corners, and that's how it came up.
And what happened? Yeah. I mean, so what did you do? Well, why did it come up?
Well, it's because we talked about Four Corners, and I thought, wow, that's the same thing that the cartoon that I drew, but it just gets me pumped up for perhaps this year. Definitely look into
what happened to that. What happened to the cartoon?
Well, what happened to the cartoon? Well, nothing happened to the. Did you want me to say it?
Okay. Yeah. All right. So we're at the raffle stage. Basically, I think we had one last time when we talked about how many times it took me to break the piñata during my birthday. And so we've given away some goodies, and so we want to do it again. And as you know, every week. So today around 5 or 6, we're going to drop our weekly bulletin with the wrap up. Similar to what we're doing here. And so we would like to solicit your stories. So people that are watching us now, your immigrant stories, if you could. So basically, it's kind of a two-step process. So if you can provide us, you can just message us with your stories, and we'll read it, and then we'll decide who wins it. So that's one. That's step one. You have to give us your immigrant story, or the way you immigrated. Just something great about that fact. And number two, since you're dealing with a known cartoonist, Nick Chavez, we would like for you to draw both Nick and I, and then we'll judge that as well. So we're going to judge your story. We're going to read your story, and then we're going to also weigh your drawing to see if it's as good as Nick's or better. And perhaps you'll break through, and we'll be your agent, and we'll get you published. But anyway, so we'd like to solicit the story and also the drawing of Nick and I. And what do you think we should do the deadline next week, and then deadline next week, and then we'll do the raffle the following week? I mean, is that enough time, do you think?
For a story, Yeah, but to draw me and you, it could take less than a minute.
Yeah, that's true. The little stick figures, and one is probably taller, bigger than the other. But yeah. So, what do you think, Joe? Should we do? Let's bring our
We're having a session here in live. Okay.
Hi everyone, Joe here. How about two winners? Because some people might have different skill sets. Some
That's
people
good.
might get good at writing, and some people might be good at drawing. Personally, I'm better at drawing. So how about
there's
this?
no age limit, right? Just to be clear, it could be
No,
your
there shouldn't be
kid,
an age limit. No.
your child who wants to draw, and they can draw us.
Okay,
Yeah,
so we'll
we'll
do two.
judge each
Perfect.
on per cases. It depends. We're not gonna outweigh your child's drawing just because it's not as good as this 35-year-old professional artist drawing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
So
we'll okay.
I don't know.
So
I'm not too sure. Let's bring in some other person from the firm. Let's see who else is available.
All right, so we're gonna do the story, and we look forward to reading those and also a drawing. So let's do next Thursday, and then we'll judge it. And well, man, are you gonna be here Friday? You're gonna be in New York, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to be here, so I'm not going to be judging, and I wouldn't judge that type of thing.
No. To choose the winner, right? So we'll have to. We'll see where it lands. So okay, all right. So let's do it until next Thursday, and then we'll announce the winner the following Friday on air live with Nick. All right. So this is it. This is it for today. Again, follow us. If you see this big banner behind me, that's our app, Lawpilot Guardian. Fantastic. The immigration app of the year, of the decade, founded by Nick and I. Get it, scan it, register, and download it to your phone. You'll get your breaking news on immigration. You'll be connected with us. So in case anything happens to you, when you press that big red button, we'll be notified of your location, and we'll be able to hear to an audio that gets uploaded to the cloud for our review. Plus, it has just lots of content. So scan it, register, and download it. We thank you for tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing you again. And we wish you a great weekend, guys. Everybody, take care. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.